Managing the behavior of students in a classroom can be a difficult challenge for today's teachers. They need to be able to foster a positive learning environment based on the various needs of all students. This includes students with disabilities, students who may be culturally diverse, and students who come from different socioeconomic backgrounds. My name is Anthony, and today I'm going to be telling you about a few evidence-based strategies to 1. Reduce problem behaviors in the classroom, and 2. To reinforce positive behaviors in the classroom. The first thing we'll do is go over the class description for this project. My class is a 3rd grade reading class in an urban school setting with a low socioeconomic background. It has 2 Spanish-speaking ELL students, as well as 1 student with a disability, which is ADHD. Now that we have our classroom description and setup, we're going to go over a brief classroom management plan. This plan is indicative of what I would typically do to support positive behavior in my classroom on a daily basis for all students. The first thing to consider is a proper physical environment of the classroom. First, it is important that the teacher has full visibility of all students and that all students have full visibility of the teacher. Second, both the teacher and the students should be able to move around the classroom easily when necessary. Third, distractions, such as windows or doors that students can see through, should be minimized when necessary. Finally, the students and teachers should have their personal spaces and be taught the value of personal space and respecting other people's belongings. In this particular classroom, the seating arrangement I would personally choose for my grade level is sitting in groups to promote collaboration. Continuing with the classroom management plan, I think it's important to set up rules and routines in your classroom. The rules and routines should be clear and precise as they allow the classroom to run smoothly and maximize student learning opportunities. Schedules and transitions should also be put in place for students. Schedules help students know what to expect throughout the day, and transitions help move students through activities while minimizing distractions. I will be going over some of these rules and schedules in more detail here shortly. Finally, the teacher should maintain a positive attitude, demonstrate creativity in teaching, gain a personal touch with students, show compassion, and have a sense of humor when appropriate. According to the National Center for Education Evaluation and Regional Assistance, in partnership with the Department of Education, one effective Tier 1 strategy for reducing inappropriate behaviors in students is to modify the classroom learning environment by decreasing problem behavior. This includes revisiting, practicing, and reinforcing classroom and behavioral expectations. These expectations should be conveyed daily through teaching strategies, positive behavior modeling, and building positive relationships among students. Here are some examples of classroom rules to help students keep up with some of those expectations. One of them is to maintain a safe environment. This includes no hitting, pushing, or fighting. To use all class materials safely, such as chairs and scissors, and follow all safety procedures, such as fire drills. Also, it is important to be respectful to one another. Use kind words, listen to your teachers and peers, treat school materials and other objects respectfully, and respect personal space. So let's see how we could use this in a classroom example. Say you had a student that was acting up and clearly violating one of the class rules. For this instance, we'll say the rule of maintaining a self environment. They're not sitting in their chair properly, and they're constantly rocking back and forth, putting themselves and others in danger. As a teacher, what you could do is remind them, maybe by pointing over to your list of classroom rules, that hey, we need to maintain a self environment and they really shouldn't be rocking in the chair. It's okay to use teacher modeling in this situation to show them how they should be sitting in the chair and how to react. That can be an effective way too. But overall, the end goal is to reinforce that hey, we have these rules and expectations and that we would like for you to adhere to them. Also published by the National Center for Educational Evaluation and Regional Assistance, another Tier 1 strategy for reducing inappropriate behaviors in the classroom is to identify the specifics of the problem behavior that prompt and reinforce it. This is done by concretely describing the behavior problem and its effect on learning, and by observing and recording the frequency and the context of the problem behavior. Identifying the specifics of a problem behavior and really determining what's reinforcing and allowing that behavior to continue to occur, we can really get to the root of what's causing the problem behavior to help determine solutions. So the first thing we want to do is determine what the problem behavior is. So say in our classroom description, we'll take our student with ADHD. He's constantly blurting out in class, not raising his hand. Boom, that's the problem behavior. Then we want to kind of find out when it's occurring, the setting. Is it at a specific time in the day? Maybe it's just in the morning, and maybe it's only during math class. Then we want to look at other factors, maybe social factors. We're in a lower socioeconomic city. Could be that the student isn't eating breakfast. His parents can't afford to get him breakfast. Maybe the school doesn't provide breakfast, or maybe he comes late to class and isn't able to eat one way or another. That's affecting him and making him anxious, and he's blurting out because of that. So as you can see, it's important to kind of delve into all the factors so that we can kind of get, like we said, to the root of the problem and find out what's really happening and what interventions we can do to make it better. According to an educationworld.com publishing, another Tier 1 strategy to reduce inappropriate behaviors would be to teach and reinforce new skills to increase appropriate behavior and preserve a positive classroom climate. To do this, you would identify where the student needs explicit instruction for appropriate behavior, teach skills by providing examples, practice, and feedback, and manage consequences so that reinforcers are provided for appropriate behavior and withheld for inappropriate behavior. So one example to use this strategy in the classroom, let's say on the way to lunch, all the students are shoving into each other, they want to be first in line, and no one's really getting anywhere. As a teacher, this is a perfect time to maybe teach the value of taking turns or waiting in line. You can explain the importance of this to the kids, have them think about past times, maybe like in PE class or something, they've had to wait for a turn to go on the swing or go on a slide or something like that. Then maybe later on the day when you get to the classroom, you can do some role playing with them, maybe at the computer lab, taking turns, the proper way to ask to take a turn, all that kind of stuff. That way, you're reducing that problem behavior of everyone shoving into each other and not really wanting to wait their turn in line. And you're helping them develop new skills and new behaviors to reduce those old behaviors and get rid of them entirely. Another strategy published by Urban Education Study would be giving priority to developing and maintaining positive, meaningful, caring, and trusting relationships with students. Establishing relationships can help minimize classroom disruptions, improve student engagement, and reduce stress. It is also beneficial with students who are culturally diverse because it allows teachers to learn about students' cultures and their way of thinking. For example, with one of our ELL students, one way they may get disciplined at home in their culture could be completely different from the way that they get disciplined in the classroom, and they might not get that divide to know, hey, maybe I'm doing something wrong here. So this one is extremely beneficial with those students who may be culturally diverse. According to the WIDA handbook, another great strategy for reinforcing appropriate behavior would be in Action 10 of the handbook, which states, identify the language needed for functional use in teaching and learning. The functional approach on language demonstrates how language operates in all areas of the curriculum. It helps to focus classroom communication between teachers and students and negotiate a shift between language for everyday purposes and the language needed to be precise about conceptual knowledge. This can be effective with the topic of school safety and to communicate the effects of dangerous behavior that affects safety and the safety of other students. For instance, in the classroom, particularly with the ELL students, it might be beneficial to participate in an activity where they get pictures of different actions and they're able to sort those pictures into actions that may be considered dangerous and other actions that are safe and acceptable. They could also take this opportunity to predict the outcome of what some of those dangerous behaviors or outcomes might be. According to a University of Minnesota publishing, another great Tier 1 strategy is using tangible reinforcers and verbal praise. In the classroom, this could include candy, toys, stickers, or rewards. It's good to provide motivation for the student, and they're very effective. In such programs, students gain access to praise or token reinforcement when they exhibit specific target behaviors, such as the completion of assigned work. Token reinforcers, such as stickers, are exchanged later in the day or week for access to preferred activities, whether it be computer games, running errands for the teacher, or other awards. Results from interventions suggest at least 2 empirically based teacher-centered strategies to both increase appropriate student behaviors and decrease inappropriate behaviors. These were found to be the skillful and consistent use of teachers' verbal praise provided contingently for appropriate behavior, and the provision of increased opportunities for students to respond correctly to instructional questions, tasks, and commands. These strategies were also found to be very beneficial in students with disabilities, especially those in my situation in my classroom with ADHD. According to a University of Florida publishing by Nicholas Gage, a great Tier 2 reinforcement strategy is called check in and check out. How this works in the classroom is students begin and end the day with an adult mentor who ensures that each student is prepared for the school day. They set daily goals with the student, and they provide praise and tangible rewards when the student achieves certain goals. Additionally, the student checks in with the teachers at the end of each class period or another specified interval to receive feedback and a rating on a daily progress report about how well he or she met behavioral expectations. It's also good to note that this is a great strategy for, maybe somewhere a low socioeconomic place like we are. It doesn't need many resources, very few resources. So any school, any teacher can do this, and it's a great strategy to implement. A second Tier 2 reinforcement strategy, also published by Nicholas Gage in the University of Florida article, utilizes a strategy called First Step to Success. This is an intervention program that aims to give at-risk students a strong beginning to their education, strengthening their engagement and involving their parents in a collaborative relationship with their schools. This involves universal screening, classroom intervention, and in-home parent training. First Steps to Success method could be a little tricky, so I'll explain it a little bit here. First, it's more so an early intervention, so it's better, the earlier you find it, the better. My third grade class in this situation is probably about the latest you're going to want to go with it. But you'll find a student who's developing antisocial or inappropriate behaviors, and you'll go ahead and link them up with a behavioral coach. That coach will develop a few interventions for his or her behaviors, and then along with the primary teacher, they'll implement that over a course of about 25 to 30 days. Now, in doing so, when the student is, because of the interventions, displaying appropriate behaviors, they'll receive either praise or, tangible rewards, and certain things, like at-home contingencies are also in play. So anytime, he does something good, maybe like a reward, the whole class gets a reward. So there's peer influence and there's at-home influence going on, as well as, the behavioral coach will often link up with the parents, go through some at-home parent training to, foster those positive behavioral occurrences and skills they can use to continue to foster those positive behaviors at home and also in the classroom. Another great Tier 3 reducing strategy is something called Prevent, Teach, and Reinforce. This is when a standardized collaborative model for providing intensive tertiary support for students with chronic challenging behaviors occurs. In the classroom setting or in the school setting, how this would go down is a team of teachers would assess the function of the problem behavior and then develop individualized behavioral intervention plans that include manipulating behavioral antecedents, teaching replacement behaviors, and arranging consequences to improve the probability that students will successfully improve their behavior. A final great Tier 3 reducing strategy is the utilization of social stories. These help teach students routines, expectations, and behavioral standards in a fun, alternative story format. It works well with all students, but it works specifically well with students on the autism spectrum and those with ADD or ADHD, as we have in our mock classroom. An example of using this in the classroom would go something like this. Say your student with ADHD is constantly blurting out and asking for help in an inappropriate way that's disrupting the class. What you can do is have them outline in a fun, creative social story the right ways to go about knowing when they need help and how to ask for help. They could go over the social story and eventually learn how to eliminate the behavior of asking in the inappropriate way and use their social stories to act in positive, appropriate ways when asking for help. The following are my references and all of the articles and evidence for the studies of the strategies that I chose. Feel free to look into them even more if you have any more additional questions, or reach out to me if needed. Thank you for watching the presentation.